Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of Gina's Gems, where you get to meet the team behind the scenes. Back with me today is one of my very first guests, Phil Lacey, our health and productivity practice leader out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Phil is here to drop some gems with us relative to what history teaches us about health and productivity challenges today. Hi, Phil. So good to have you back.
It's good to be back. Thank you, Gina.
Yeah, you bet. So you and I had a pretty interesting conversation last week that started with you and your old fraternity brothers grabbing a beer on your fraternity's Founders Day. How all good conversations start, right?
Exactly.
So you'd mentioned that you guys were talking about the similarities in the world today versus what was going on in the 70s when you guys were at the start of your careers. So tell me about that conversation. What are some of the trends happening today that happened in the past?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I've been around a long time, and sometimes it is good to kind of revisit the past to see how it might impact the future. And as I said, we were talking with a bunch of us that all had gone to school together, and we were talking about how there are a lot of similarities right now as when we started our careers back in the late 70s. And we had some interesting times. Obviously, in 1979, Iran had their revolution, and as a result of that, they took over the American embassy in Tehran. That caused for a drop in oil production because the U.S. then had an embargo on Iranian oil as well as oil from around the area, and that caused gas prices to spike. We were already seeing higher inflation back in the 70s, post Vietnam War, but by 1979, it really spiked. Just to give you some idea of some of the stats from that time, inflation in 1978 was 7.6%, and it grew to 13.5% by 1980. Interest rates were at 9.6% in 1978. By 1981, those had risen to 16.6%. So think about trying to buy you're a new homeowner, you want to buy your first house or something, and you're paying, over 16% interest on a mortgage loan. Gas prices were 60 cents a gallon in 1978, and by sometime around the middle of 1979, they had already risen to $1.19 a gallon. I remember the company I worked for in Chicago. I was an underwriter at CNA, and we were getting 6% merit increases every 6 months. We also got a $300 transportation stipend to help us kind of offset this doubling of gas prices at that period of time. So it was tough. Now, what it did for us in the business, in particular for me as an LTD underwriter back then, generally when the economy is not good, you see an increase in incidents in LTD because the employees will look at a 60% benefit is better than having no benefit if employers are laying people off, as they were in the late 70s. But we actually saw something very different because the factor there was inflation. With inflation so high, you would look at your 60% benefit and say, well, if I'm out for a year or two, that's going to erode that 60%. It's going to be down to a 35 or 40% benefit over some period of time, as well as the fact that employers may not take me back to work. They may eliminate my job while I'm out. So those were some of the things that we were facing back in that time. And then with interest rates being as high as they were, LTD insurers were making double-digit investment gains on their portfolio. So it was actually a really good time for them, coupled with the fact that not as many people were going out. So the opposite was kind of happening at that period of time as to what we might have expected. Now, fast forward to today, and you throw in the implications of COVID, we're seeing delayed care or avoided care altogether when COVID first hit. And is that going to manifest itself into higher musculoskeletal claims, for example? I heard one insurer the other day say that they're just now starting to see a spike in incidents in their musculoskeletal claims. Severity may also become a factor as people have avoided care. Absenteeism is probably going to continue to stay high, and if not even increase. And then you've got the work from home crowd that now that offices are starting to reopen again and people are going back into the office with gas prices doubling, are people going to be saying, wait a minute, I can't afford to go into the office every day? And there's going to probably be some pushback that would allow employees to continue to work from home. So we do have some different factors. Inflation has been very, very low up to now, and disability insurers in particular have a hard time making good profits when inflation is low because interest rates are low and they're not making as much as investment income. So I think as inflation continues to rise, as interest rates are going to rise, then we're going to see some changes in pricing methodologies from the insurers because they're going to have a little bit more margin. Now it's going to take some period of time for them to get there. They just don't take all their investment portfolio and dump it into new investments. There is some period of time where that transitions, and new money, of course, will go into the new investments. But I think we're going to see some interesting times if inflation continues to stay high and interest rates go up.
So what do you suggest employers need to do moving forward?
Well, it's interesting times. Again, there's a lot of moving parts here, and it's going to be important that employers really have good advisors that understand the markets, where things are going, how to prepare for changes in interest rates, changes in just the population, the workforce in general. But also with your insured programs, being able to pick apart where there are opportunities with your current insurers or moving the business to other insurers, to look for pricing opportunities to get some economies of scale, as well as to reduce the cost of your insurance programs going forward.
And the MMA ADL team is ready, willing, and able to help.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. No, we have a good group in our financial department with our underwriters that have deep experience in this. And so we'll be looking at the insurance carrier marketplace pretty heavily as interest rates go up to see where we can find margins for our clients.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. This was really interesting. We'll continue the conversation offline about the other conversations you had over beers with your buddies. Thanks so much for being here today.
Sounds good, Gina.
Who tuned in, hope you took away some good nuggets from today's conversation, and we'll see you again in another 2 weeks. See you soon.